Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. How did that one kid from your school pass away? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. School had recently made a rule where food could not be taken out of the cafeteria. He stuffed the entire cheeseburger into his mouth and started walking out into the halls. Made it about 30 feet before falling over. Big guy. The only person who could even attempt the Heimlich maneuver was the weightlifting coach. Wasn't enough. Sad stuff. He took weight loss pills ordered online that were actually a form of pesticide, trying to get beach ready after his final exams. Died so suddenly and violently, they initially thought it was meningitis. Basically all his mitochondria firing too hard and he overheated. If you've ever seen a fly die after hitting it with the fly spray, a bit like that. Absolutely effed. He came to school one day with flu-like symptoms and no one thought too much about it. By the time it was end of day, he started having some cognitive impairment. By the time they took him to the hospital, it was too late, and he died from encephalitis. She was my cousin, 5 years older than me. When I was 8, she was 13. She would walk me home from school and wait with me until my mom got home. My parents had just gotten divorced and we had moved back to the town where my mom had grown up. She taught me dirty jokes and how to make crank phone calls. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but when she was in high school, she was riding in a car that got into an accident. She ended up in a coma. In my sophomore year in high school, they took her off life support and she died. She was one of 11 kids, all of whom had gone to my small Catholic high school. The youngest was a year behind me. She and I were close. I remember feeling so horrible for her, the youngest sister, when they announced that she had died over the school PA. Her name, the older cousin, was Angie, and she was a big Rolling Stones fan, and to this day, 42 years later, I can't help crying when I hear that song, or as I type this. A senior in high school died of cancer just after graduation. He was the most popular kid in his classes. It was pancreatic cancer, so it just happened. Genuinely shocked the entire school. He was a very liked guy. His girlfriend at the time was in my high school class, and she was devastated. Leaned on drugs as a coping mechanism and became a meth addict. She died 2 years after him. It's brutal. One boy in my year got hit by a bus while running across the road after school. He died in hospital a week later. Another boy got home from school, stated he wasn't feeling well and went to take a nap. His parents checked on him in the evening, decided to let him sleep it off. They tried to wake him up for school the next morning and he had died in his sleep. Turned out he had meningitis. He found out it was the wrong classroom he was waiting at, and so he was running late for an important test. He ran down the stairs and tripped down the first, breaking, hitting his head on the railing, causing him to break his neck. Since he was running late and it was a test week, he laid there for 20 minutes before anyone found out. Rest in peace, Joey. He was my good friend and we were 16. He drowned at the lake. He wasn't even supposed to go to the lake that day. In fact, he had lied to his grandmother, saying he was going to be at my house that day. Instead of coming over to my house, he decided to go swimming with a group of kids he wasn't supposed to be hanging out with. Snowmobile accident. Him and one of his other friends got separated and she turned around to go find him and they met on a blind hill. His sled went over the top of his and the ski impaled him through his heart. They were both going too fast for the trail. I was supposed to ride with them that day, but my parents wanted to go to my grandparents' house. Had a brain tumor, so started a fundraiser by running a marathon with his bald head. Crazy guy. Raised $80,000 for cancer treatment of others, since he wasn't going to survive anyway. He told people to not donate cash because he liked gambling too much, but since he was a funny guy, people were like, "Kid, do it." So he did. Turned around $300 into $4,000 and told everyone he'd rather have some more luck with health. He bought his first car with that $4,000. He was going to give it to his brother. I think someone was listening when he asked for more luck with his health because the treatment turned out to be successful and he survived cancer. There was pretty much a 0% chance, but doctors said it probably had something to do with him training for or running the marathon. He crashed his first car 3 months later coming home after losing $300 at the casino and didn't survive. A kid in our high school was in a boating accident with another boat at night. Both the kid from my school and the 40-something-year-old guy he hit died too. It was all over the news. The 17-year-old from my school was getting painted as some reckless kid. A few weeks later, the actual findings and toxicology results came out. The older guy had a ton of cocaine and alcohol in his system, was an inexperienced boater, and parked with his lights out. My classmate grew up and worked in the marina, so he knew what he was doing. This was not in the front pages, which angered a lot of us that he was originally put in such a bad light due to his age. We lost several to car accidents. One memorable incident were two best friends. One of the friends had cerebral palsy, and he was very recognizable due to his disability. The school was fairly small, and everyone knew everyone else. I guess the two boys got drunk and got into a car accident. The kid with CP, passenger, died. There was the horror of the fact that this kid accidentally killed his best friend. I remember my teacher reading names off of the attendance list shortly after this happened, and accidentally read the kid's name. He stopped and started to cry. Because it was such a small school, everyone was very affected by it. The boy who survived was out of school for at least a month. I think there was some worry that the other students might bully or harass him because of it, but no one did. Years later, I came across a photo on MySpace of his wedding, and there was a butterfly sitting on his shoulder. Everyone thought it was his friend's spirit coming through the butterfly to wish his buddy well on his wedding day. Very touching. There were 3 in this case. All of them were very good friends. One of them had just passed his driving test, and he picked up his mates to go for a drive to celebrate. They were driving the car at night down a country road. Here in the UK, there are many roads that are very narrow and winding. This road was one of them. They sped up to overtake a car, and as they were turning the corner immediately after, they went headfirst into a tractor coming the other way. All 3 died instantly. None of them had been drinking. They weren't tired. It was a combination of lack of experience from the driver and impatience to overtake the car. It was reckless driving, but that mistake cost the lives of 3 17 to 18-year-olds. I wasn't friends with them, but I had no issues with any of them. It shook everyone at the school and other schools too, as they were pretty popular. The driver's parents saved the car and used to go around schools in the area to promote safe driving and teach kids to be careful on the roads when they passed their test. The car was mangled so much, it was scary. There was no hope for any of them. I mean, a true tragedy. All of these are. I mean, young people losing their lives is terrible. And car accidents, this is a tough one all around. But all respect to the parents advocating to children to try to prevent another tragedy. He was asleep in the back seat of the car with his parents in the front on their way back from holiday when they got into an accident, and he was launched through the front windscreen onto the street. He was 9 or 10, I think, in the year above me. I didn't know him, but I could put a face to the name. The school made sure we all knew what had happened. Wear your seatbelts, kids. The parents weren't seriously hurt in the crash, not physically anyway. I can't imagine what a toll that must take. He was their only child. He wouldn't have had their entire back seat to himself to lie down or otherwise. He killed himself in grade 10. He was a nice guy, but hated being at school. He was a little strange at times, but he wasn't bullied or anything. His famous line he'd say when walking around skipping class was, "I'm on a mission." Sometime later in the year, he had just enough and hung himself inside his closet. He wrote, "Trust no one," inside the wall. I was a distant friend of his. I never got to know him personally, but in the few times we hung out, he was really nice. In grade 1, the girl who I sat next to was murdered by her father. She was stabbed many, many times to death. I believe it was 89 times, and the knife was left in her chest. Her father was schizophrenic and had an episode where he killed his daughter and his elderly mother, who was stabbed 39 times. I believe he thought they were Satan and currently still believe they are not dead. This was back in the late 90s, and he was sent to a facility for the criminally insane. Was too unstable to stand trial. Very tragic and extremely weird to find out that at 6 years old. I didn't realize how gruesome it was until reading about it many years later. I remember how excited she was when her dad showed up one day to give her an extra clothes or something. She bolted to him and gave him a massive hug. It still just makes me so confused thinking about it. Her desk remained empty all year. I remember the neighbor boy that played with her daily was bawling his eyes out as we sat on the circle carpet being told of her death. My dad was also diagnosed schizophrenic, so that was just an odd thing for me growing up. I probably should book an appointment with my therapist, as I think I kind of repressed this for many years. Within 1 year, my high school lost 4 students. First death was a popular senior, a wrestler. I didn't know him well because I was a freshman, but my mom taught at the same school I went to, and he was in her class. He took his own life after an argument with his parents about his grades. 2 weeks later, the same guy's best friend also ended his own life. He had prior depression issues and just couldn't cope. The whole school grieved both of them hard, and I remember the teachers being very concerned about a suicide cluster. Thankfully, one did not occur. Months go by, and a kid from my class is hit by a bus while walking home from school. Robbie. He was so funny, and he always carried a bag of Jolly Ranchers with him. A bunch of his friends got Jolly Ranchers tattooed on them when they turned 18. And lastly, right before high school ended, one of the junior class students who had just gotten her license ran a light by mistake and was killed instantly in a car accident. 2008 was a rough year. We had 2 while I was at school. One got a job during the summer holidays as a cleaner. He was operating a floor polisher and it was shorting to the metal casing. He was electrocuted and died. Another had failed his mock exams just before his family were due to go away on holiday, so they left him at home and told him he should spend the time revising for a retake after the summer. They found him hanging in the garage after a week of them being abroad, having a great holiday. As a father myself, now I've learned that if my kids fail or do less well than expected, I won't ever take it out on them or punish them, but give them a lot of close support and let them know whatever happens, they will be okay. My mom always taught me to be friends with those who want to be friends with me and treated me kindly. He was bullied in high school, and when teachers wouldn't step in, I would. He confided in me during our junior year that he had Asperger's but didn't want the others to know, so I never told. But tried to include him more and advocate for the bullying to stop. We ran into each other again at community college, and I would occasionally eat lunch with him since he was always alone. His family told me they appreciated it. I met his sister once, and she let me know he was adopted. After transferring to university, I lost contact with him. I started working at the police department as a 911 call taker. We're in a large open room so we can hear one another speaking in case we get similar calls. One of my coworkers was speaking to someone who was saying they were going to commit suicide and wanted his goodbyes to be recorded for his family. He then stepped in front of a train. Hearing this, we got other calls saying the same thing. When we get calls like that, we all look at it to get more info about who the person was. It was him. He spoke about the bullying throughout school, the lack of friends, and just overall loneliness. He genuinely felt everyone would be happier without him. I remember texting my friends, we were all still fairly close, about what happened. They all felt really bad about contributing to it, and a lot of them, of course, aren't who they were in high school. There was no funeral to attend, just a cremation of what was left. I think about him sometimes and what life could have been like if bullying had stopped and he was actually embraced rather than tolerated. He was very bright and great in our chemistry class. He used to help me understand some of the concepts I struggled with. He laughed when I got a C in bio in college because science was never my thing. It was 2002 or 2003. Parents would usually pick up their kids from school, and some people would send their drivers to pick up their kids. We had a VVIP's son studying in our school, and his driver would pick him up daily once school was over. On this particular day, the kid asked his driver to allow him to drive the car, and the driver was hesitant at first, but he gave the car to him anyways as he was afraid to lose his job. The boy was 12 years old, by the way. The kid got in the driver's seat, and shifted to drive and accelerated and instantly lost control of the car, and he rammed into a girl, crushing her against a wall. This happened in front of my eyes. The girl died on the spot. Police were called because the boy had an influential family. There were no charges pressed on the boy, as his family paid $300,000 blood money to the dead girl's family. That girl's sister still posts about her dead sister on her death anniversary every year. It's really sad to see someone die because they were standing in the wrong place at the wrong time.